Hi, everyone. Welcome to the June Talk About Real Estate, Real Talk About Real Estate. My name is Michelle, and I'm the marketing lead for the ABR designation. Today, I'm joined by Lynn Madison of Madison Seminars and a REBAC Hall of Fame inductee. We had 103 designees RSVP for this Facebook Live, so I think it's safe to say that buyer's agents want to know how they can help buyers win in multiple offer scenarios. As a reminder, we are live, so if you have any comments or questions, feel free to let us know, and we'll do our best to answer them. Lynn, what is one of the first things that buyer's agents can do to prepare their clients for multiple offer markets?
Well, one of the things that we talk about a lot is this issue of managing the expectations of our buyers. We know that they all think they know what's going on out there in the real estate world because they're on the internet, they're listening to news, but we all know that that can be slanted. So one of the most important things is to take the time to educate our clients on what to reasonably expect when they find the house they want to put an offer on, and to explain the negotiating process to them, and have them sit and consider what their deal killers are and what their range of acceptability is, because they're probably not, and I'm going to talk about it in just a minute, the win in today's market is not going to be on the price. The win is going to be on being the successful purchaser of that property, and we need to reformat that. But I would say the first thing we need to do is take the time to manage their expectations. And I know that's tough, everybody, because what today's buyers want is for you to be like an Uber agent. They want to pick up the phone or pick up and text you or call, whatever, and have you jump up and go show them houses without ever having any conversation with you. So here I'm sitting here telling you, have conversation and prepare them, and they don't want to be prepared. So I know that's not an easy thing to do, but it's really, really important that we prepare them for that.
Totally.
Okay. Yeah. So when we talk about preparation, and I mentioned this a few minutes ago, the surveys that have been done have shown us that 97% of the people use the internet to begin their home search. And I think the other 3% of them are not telling the truth, because I think we all know that almost 100% of them are doing that. And the problem is, as I said, they're getting some bad information. So one of the things that I talk about all the time, and I want to talk about, well, let me just jump in and say, we need to educate them on the market. And we need to do a current, accurate CMA. And I'm going to talk about a CMA for our buyers here, and I'll talk about it again in a few minutes. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got to do a CMA. And I know that they're still going to pay probably more for the house than what the CMA shows, but we still need to do it. And I might as well throw it out there to you now. I cannot recommend highly enough that you have your buyers sign off on the CMA that you gave them. Because when your CMA shows that the property is going to sell between $370 and $390, and they end up paying $420, you don't want them coming back after you. So take a page out of our book from 2008 through 2013, when we had buyers coming back getting angry at us. And it's what we did then and what I hope you're all doing right now. When that buyers start paying more than that. But we need to be able to explain what's going on in the market, and explaining supply and demand. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but just enough time that they really, really understand what this means, because they probably don't. They probably don't.
Right. So if we narrow down all the things that go into knowing the market, what would be the top three?
I created, as you guys can see, my slides here to kind of remind you of the things I wanted to talk about, but also so that when you want to play this back, you can see some of this. But I'm just going to mention three. Most of your MLS analytical systems have 15 to 25 different analytical things you can look at, and that's way too much for your buyers. Don't try to give them every piece of information that your MLS spits out at us. We need that, but they don't. Number one is supply and demand. We just need to talk to them about how many houses are on the market, how many are going off the market. And when you show them that the inventory is down considerably from where it was even a year ago, 6 months ago, or whatever, and the transactions are going up, there's an imbalance. We have high demand and we have low supply, and the prices are going to go up. So it's the basics, just economics 101 of supply and demand. But then there's two other things that we can look at, and that's days on the market. When the days on market in your MLS are going up, so the houses are staying on the market longer, that means it's trending more to a buyer's market and the prices are going to come down. But when you watch those that days on market start plummeting, going down, we have some areas here in the Chicago, I'm from the Chicago area. We have some areas that have less than 6 days on the market, less than 6 days. And when you only have 6 days on the market, then you got to prepare your buyers for when they find something they like, they need to be ready to jump. Because otherwise they're going to lose it. And it's really a shame how often we see that the buyers have to lose houses before they start to listen to everything that we're telling them. So watch for days on the market. So you're watching for supply and demand, and then you're watching for days on the market. And maybe the most important thing to watch for is your absorption rate or your month supply of inventory, because this is the thing that most economists look at to determine whether it's a buyer's market or it's a seller's market. And when you watch this days on market, you watch this absorption rate. When you have less than a 4-month supply, you are sitting in a seller's market. And again, I'm going to say to you that in my marketplace here in Chicagoland, and I know this is true, I did something for 2 other states, Louisiana and Massachusetts earlier this week and last week. Their market time is also, we're counting the month supply of inventory in less than 1 month. I mean, some marketplaces literally don't even have a 1-month supply. So watch for absorption rate or month supply of inventory and be able to explain to the clients what all of that means. So we could spend a whole lot of time here this morning talking about market stats and all of that. And I don't want to do that because I want to get into some other stuff. But do take a look at those 3 things. Those 3 things will help you to communicate to your clients what's really going on in the market.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that we need to prepare buyers. What specifics can you give us on that?
Yeah, I mentioned this briefly before, and it's probably one of the most important things. We need to make sure they understand that redefine or reframe for them the definition of winning here. Winning for a buyer in this market is not going to be on price. They're not going to get the lowest price. The win today is that they get the house. So here's what we need to do to help them win. We can't wait until they're ready to write an offer to have this discussion. The discussion that we're having this morning has got to start with our buyers way back over here, because it starts with if the buyer can only go to 300,000, then why are we showing them houses that are listed at 325? And I know the argument that I get from some people in classes is, yeah, but they're overpriced. I don't know that you can say that things are overpriced in this market. So if it's listed at 300,000 and the buyer 320 and the buyer can only go to 300, you are subliminally telling them, I'm going to show you this house because you can get this house for 300,000. And that's not the focus we want them to have. I want you to consider that if the lender says to you they can only go to 300, that maybe you should be showing them $275,000 houses. Because if they can only go to 3, then at 275, they have room to do some of the stuff we're going to talk about next. But if you're showing them $300,000 houses and that's their max, what happens when they get in a multiple offer? What happens when they need to go over list price? They can't. So explain to them why you're doing that. Explain to them that it is a strategy to help them buy the house that they like. So give some thought to reframing all of that. I know you still have buyers who are saying, I want you to show me $350,000 houses because I'm going to bring the seller down to my price. Well, I can't fix this. You and I can't fix this for everybody. So, but for the most part, they do start to be a little bit more reasonable. So our job then is to frame this for them. They want to take advantage of these low interest rates. And if the prices continue to go up, waiting isn't going to help them. And we all know, and I'll bet all of you are thinking the same thing. I even feel bad sometimes when the buyers are paying that much more than what the market is indicating the value to be. And let me just say to you, that's not our decision. Our job is to give them all the information and they make the decision. There is a reason why our buyers are buying today. And it's that they can't be sure that the interest rates a year from now, after their lease has been up because they had to renew their lease for another year because they couldn't find a house, what are the interest rates going to be a year from now, and what are the prices going to be? So waiting or not being reasonable when they make an offer can ultimately cost them in the long run. So like I said, reframing all of this with them. And there was one other thing I just wanted to throw out and mention to everyone. I hope you've all read today's Buyer's Rep, this edition of it. It was all about what we're talking about here. There's some, and I did not repeat everything that's in the Buyer's Rep. You can go read that one, but take a look at it, because there's some, on top of what we're talking about this morning, some really good ideas in there. And also I wanted to throw out to everybody the new one sheet. And I wasn't aware of this one either. Michelle told me about it, told me about it yesterday, because I'll admit I hadn't read the article yet. It's in there. Nice job, Michelle. You put it in there.
Thank you.
But it's a great one sheet, because what it does is answer some of the buyer's questions about multiple offers proactively. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were all aware that that was there. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. I went through all of it yesterday. And I wanted to also throw out in this whole concept of what we can do to prepare our buyers for all of this is that I don't know if all of you are in marketplaces where you use attorneys, but I know we're all using lenders, or most of us are. This is the time, ladies and gentlemen, where we have to be working as a team. You and the lender and the buyer's attorney have to all be, can I say, singing from the same sheet of music. Because if you're not, and if that lender is not communicating with you, and I even have for you a list of questions here that you should be asking the buyer's lender. You want to make sure that the lender has run their credit, verified their employment. If they're self-employed, have they viewed their taxable, their income tax returns for their taxable income? What type of financing are they qualified for, and how high can this buyer go? And what are the buyer's options if it doesn't appraise? Because, ladies and gentlemen, all of this needs to be communicated between you and the lender. And this is, if there was ever a time for you to be having your buyers use your preferred lender. And when I say preferred lender, I'm assuming you all have more than one, and you can refer more than one lender to your buyers. But these are lenders you know do a good job. Unfortunately, we have some lenders out there. And by the way, we have agents who don't do their job. We have in every category of our business, there's some people who don't do their jobs. And this is not the time to have that happen. I need a lender who can give me the guidance I need to help me get this buyer into their house. And if this is a lender who's telling you they're not going to give you this information, it's a problem, because you guys need to be working together on this. And if in fact there's attorneys involved, you need to make sure that we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. Because I want you to visually think about one person with their oar in the other side of the boat, making it go in circles. Because that's exactly what happens when you get one person rowing in the other direction. So we all need to be rowing that boat in the same direction. So get the lenders and the attorneys and yourselves all in the same place. So that would be my suggestion with preparing our buyers, all right, ahead of time.
Perfect.
So, okay. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes on the rules, and I'm going to do this very quickly because you got to know the rules. Einstein said you have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play better than anyone else. I'm not going through the whole entire code of ethics. I'm only going to talk to you about multiple offers. I just want to make sure from the buyer agent side of things that you're totally comfortable in understanding what happens here. Now, I want to say that state laws are going to differ on certain aspects of presenting and negotiating contracts. So as we get into this, and the next section that I'm going to cover in just a second, is what can we do to make our buyers' offer stronger or better in a multiple offer situation? I need to absolutely throw out there that you need to check your state laws, because there are some states that are a little more restrictive on what you can and cannot do with all of this. However, we are all realtors and we all abide by the code of ethics. So I just want to very quickly make sure that everybody is, because we've got some listing agents who are not playing the game right, and you need to be aware of that. You might not always know you're in a multiple offer, but let's get beyond that. In this marketplace, you will know you're in a multiple offer because the sellers are going to give their listing agent the direction to tell you there's multiple offers. Where disclosure is authorized, the listing agent has to tell you if you ask who has the other offers. And it can help you immensely if you know whether or not the listing agent has his or her own offer on the property, or if it's someone from their office, or if it's a cooperating broker. The listing agent does not have to tell you, who from their office has the offer or the name of the cooperating broker or agent, but they do have to tell you where the other offers are coming from. So always ask, because it will help you. And I don't have time to go into it. We decided not to, but I just want you to, part of the reason for this is variable rate. If there's a variable rate commission on this property and the listing agent has their own offer on it, it is an imbalance for you as a buyer agent when you're with your buyer. So always ask about the multiple offers, and always ask who has the other offer. Now, if the sellers choose the other offer, so you're in a multiple offer situation and the sellers take one of the other offers, and the game's not over. And what I find is too many agents giving up too quickly. If I call you and tell you my seller took the other offer, thank you for bringing yours in, and you go back to your buyers and one of them has put a straw in their bottle of Jameson's and they're just sipping it down, and the other one is crying, then you need to say, guys, if you want the house, we need to change something. The code of ethics says that we have to present all offers to our sellers all the way up until closing. So if you get a listing agent who says to you, you've already had your chance, we're not presenting the offer, you need to go to your managing broker and have your managing broker call their managing broker, because they have to present all offers. So you can always go back in as a backup. And so you want to, you don't give up all that quickly. Okay. Now, the seller's options, there are a few states where the seller's options are they could counter back to more than one buyer, but for the most part, they can't in most states. So they're either going to accept one contract, they're going to counter to one of the buyers, they're going to send them all back for their highest and best. But here's the piece I want to just really stress. They don't have to. We hear this every day. My buyer never got a shot at it. They never came back for highest and best. Ladies and gentlemen, they don't have to come back for highest and best. So here's the deal. I'm just going to skip to this one. Your buyers need to go big or go home, because they may not get another bite at this apple. What is the harm in your buyer having, after you've prepared them for this, after you talk to them about what's the maximum you want to pay, and they say $450, and then you go, okay, so what are we going to offer? And they go, we're going to offer $425. Why? Well, maybe I can get it for $425, and maybe pigs are going to fly. I mean, I'm not real sure they can get it for $425. If they're willing to pay $450, what's the worst that's going to happen? They get the house at the price they're willing to pay, but they've got to get it out of their head that somebody else might have, that they might have been able to get it for less. I know this is a huge thing with the buyers, but it's very real. Sometimes they just need, because they don't get another shot at it at all. They just don't get another shot. So the go big or go home, it's a theory that you can talk to them about. What else can we do then to help our buyers make their offers better? Not all of the suggestions I'm going to give you next are going to work for every single one of your buyers in every single marketplace. So all I'm trying to do here is put enough arrows in your quiver so that if you need to use one, you've got some options. So I don't want you to think that I'm not foolish. I know that not everything's going to work every single time. So that's why you just emulate the green arrow. So here we go. Your buyer can go in with no mortgage contingency, which puts him on a level playing field then with a cash buyer. He's still going to have to show proof of funds in most marketplaces. He's still going to have to, he's taking all the risk now. We're saying to the seller, we're going to close. I'm still going to get a mortgage, but I'm not making this offer contingent on getting a mortgage. He needs to have more earnest money, and that earnest money needs to come in sooner. Ladies and gentlemen, in many, many marketplaces that I teach all over the country, the amount of earnest money we get is like 4 cents in a chicken. And that won't cut it in a multiple offer. More earnest money shows more interest on the part of the buyer. There have been some buyers who have been saying that they will make their earnest money non-refundable. Ladies and gentlemen, it should, if your buyer wants to go down that route, and you'll notice I don't even recommend that, because non-refundable earnest money, what if you just say it's non-refundable, guys? What if the seller kills the contract and now the seller says he's going to keep your buyer's earnest money? It's got to be one of the most dangerous things I've heard you guys even thinking about doing. So be careful with that. The buyer can pay for some of the seller's items. Some of the things in your marketplace that the sellers typically pay for, have the buyer pay for them. Because what we do is we just keep raising the price. And every time we raise the price, we end up worrying about whether or not it's going to appraise. And that's a whole nother topic of what happens when it doesn't appraise. But if surveys are called for in your marketplace, and typically it's paid for by the seller, then have your buyer pay for the survey. Your buyer can pay for the seller's title charges. Any other charges that are typical in your marketplace that the sellers would normally pay, have your buyer pay them. Remove contingencies. I do not recommend that a buyer buy a home without a home inspection. So I'm on record. You heard me say it, because I think it's dangerous. I think if we're going to get lawsuits when this is all over with, it's going to be more on the, my agent talked me out of having a home inspection. So have them, if they choose to not have a home inspection, have them sign off on something. That said, you can try to schedule the home inspection before you write the contract. I've done it. I call the listing agent. We want to do a home inspection. It will only take about an hour. We're only looking at major components. Will your seller allow us to do that? It's non-invasive. We just do it. The problem we're running into now is we don't have time to do that. By the time you can schedule the home inspection before you write the contract, 15 other offers have come in. So what started to happen is something that I'm not real comfortable with, but I need to at least let you know what's going on. It's called a walk and talk kind of inspection. I'm still not comfortable with not telling the seller or the listing agent that we're going to show the property and we're bringing a home inspector. And the walk and talk means the home inspector isn't really doing anything. All they're doing is walking through, looking at the house and talking to the buyer about it. But it gives the buyer the comfort to know that he can go in with no home inspection. He can buy it as is. And as is means he's still going to have a home in most markets. He's going to have a home inspection, but he's not going to ask the seller to fix anything. And one of the best things that you can do, if your contract calls for the property to be left in broom clean condition, then cross that out of the contract. I know for some of you, you're already going, I can't cross anything out because somebody will throw me in realtor jail. All right. But your buyers can. All right. So, and cross it out. So now what we're saying to the seller is you don't have to leave it in broom clean condition. All you have to do is move the stuff out that you want to take with you, and I will take care of cleaning out the rest of the house. I have had more agents tell me that has been successful for them, especially if the sellers are an older couple and it's the kids that are having to clean out the house. They're all going, we don't want all the stuff that's in the basement anyway. If we wanted it, we would have taken it when we left. So don't require broom clean condition. Another way you can make your offer a little bit stronger. Find out what's important to the seller. Find out what's important to the seller. And sometimes it's the closing date. And if your buyer can be flexible on the closing date, leave the closing date open and let the seller decide. And we've seen a lot of success as well of letting the seller stay in I don't like this either, and neither do you guys, but it's working. And my job here is to tell you what's working, is to allow the seller to stay in the property after the closing, because a lot of the sellers have not bought anything yet. And they're trying to coordinate those two closings. Behave yourself when you're viewing property, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful about what your buyers are saying when they're inside of the home. We've had some sellers who have said, is this the offer from the people who were here at noon on Sunday? And the answer was yes. And the sellers have said, I don't want to sell my house to them. They were rude. They were disrespectful. They made fun of my house. I'm not selling it to them. So please be careful with that. I want you to be careful about the love letters as well. Mm-hmm. NAR is recommending now that we do not have our buyers write letters to the sellers. And in all honesty, my friends, I loved the love letters. I would have my buyers write them all the time, but I was smart enough to make sure there was no fair housing implication in them. Never, ever should there be any pictures with the letters. We had some huge fair housing issues with the love letters. So NAR is recommending that you not do that. NAR does have a video, a couple of them on NAR's site that talk about this whole issue of the love letters. And last, I just want to mention to you the escalation clause. And I know I'm going to run just a little bit over time. And I said that to Michelle. And for those of you who know me, you probably all went, Lynn's going to talk for 20 minutes. She can't say good morning in 20 minutes. So let me just say to you, the escalation clause. That is, and be careful, because I know there are some states where the real estate commission, if you will, has come down and said that we should not be using escalation clauses. I question whether or not they have the authority to tell a consumer what they can do, but let's not get me in any more trouble than I'm normally in here. So be careful. But this is where the buyer says that he will pay X amount of dollars higher than the highest bona fide ascertainable offer. So the part of the reason I put stuff onto PowerPoint and part of the reason that I'm sharing it with you here is when you play this back, when you're trying to remember everything I said, they'll be able to see, Michelle, won't they, the PowerPoint that's on there.
Yep.
So I just wanted, so it's all on there, and I want you to know when you use the escalation clause, what is the buyer going to do if it doesn't appraise? He can say, I will pay X amount of dollars higher than the highest bona fide offer, all he wants till the cows come home. But what happens if it doesn't appraise? Does he have the ability to make up the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price? So what is going to happen if we just throw it out there and say we're going to pay any price that the seller wants us to pay? So I wanted you to have it. I wanted you to think about all of that as you go through it. And the last thing I wanted to share on here with you is what's called the Gap Appraisal. And this is something that many buyers have used very, very successfully. And the buyer writes into the contract, or your association or what has created something they can attach to the contract that basically says the buyer agrees to pay the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price, but always put a not to exceed price in there. Let me rephrase that. It's dangerous if you don't put a not to exceed price in there. So the escalation clause, wonderful tool. Not all sellers like it, but it's a wonderful tool. But you've got to be careful that your buyer doesn't end up paying a lot of over it. And the sellers don't like escalation clauses unless there's a gap appraisal clause in there where the buyer's saying he'll pay the difference, because otherwise it's dangerous for the sellers. So with all of that said, and we've been at this about 30 minutes, and I was trying to keep it at 20 and it didn't work. But hopefully we gave you some ideas about how you can help your buyers, prepare yourselves, and make your buyers' offers a little bit more palatable to the sellers in this goofy market that we're in. Michelle, did we have any questions or anything come in?
I'm looking. Someone asked if this will be recorded, and yes, it will. So like Lynn said, feel free to watch this again, go over her PowerPoint presentation, because she gave us some great tips here that I think are helpful for everyone. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the comments now. And I just wanted to reiterate what Lynn said about, the REBAC member benefits. She showed us the TBR. She talked about love letters too. And we have a TBR issue about that as well. I think that was February of this year. And we actually did a real talk about that as well in February. So that is a great resource for you. And also she showed us the one sheet. We have tons of one sheets that are available on abr.realtor in the member center for you to download. You can order them and customize them in the REBAC print shop. And then we also have our blog at homebuying.realtor. And I want to make sure that everyone knows about that, because we have, just like the one sheets, the blog posts are written to inform home buyers and consumers about things like multiple offer madness and love letters and things like that. So just want to make sure that everyone knows about that. And I'm just checking to see if we have any other questions. Doesn't look like it. So I wanted to thank you, Lynn, so much for today.
My pleasure.
And thank you to everyone who joined us. I hope you learned everything you wanted to know about helping buyers win. Be sure to join us next month for our July Real Talk. We have more information coming soon. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lynn.
Bye, everybody.
I hope everyone has a great day, and we will see you next month. All right. Bye.
Bye.